Hello, and welcome to another edition of Your Therapist Needs Therapy, the podcast where two mental health professionals talk about their mental health journeys and how they navigate mental wellness while working in the mental health field. I'm your host, Jeremy Schumacher, licensed marriage and family therapist. And today I am joined by a friend of the pod and somebody who I've gotten a chance to recently connect with professionally. I'm joined by Hatie Parmeter. How you doing, Hatie?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I know Hatie. You and I met from CPA, the Climate Psychology Alliance of North America.
It's true. I
You're
am
like,
the director of communications for
yeah,
the org, and it's pretty cool if you're in mental health. It's for mental health practitioners and more. We're actually sort of updating the lingo around that right now. We're also talking to and including spiritual practitioners and somatic body workers and coaches in kind of the audience, in terms of, we just provide a lot of resources for people who are dealing with clients who have climate related emotions that they're trying to work through. So it's a really interesting organization, and I've definitely met a lot of really cool people. So
yeah, yes. Spoiler alert for future podcast episodes. I'm just going to be rating the roster of people who are in CPA because it's a lot of
yeah,
cool people doing a lot of cool work.
so much passion. Yeah.
And we'll come back because we'll plug the pluggables at the end. But I do like to start with, how is it that you sort of came to be in your space in the mental health world?
Sure. So it's been a journey. I grew up obsessed with fashion and obsessed with Teen Vogue, and wanted to be a fashion designer. Was like very much like, there was a Barbie fashion thing that you could print out on fabric from your computer, and you could like make the design and cut it out and then use it on your Barbies. And so I was like a tiny child, that was my direction. Like, dress as your future career day. As like a preteen, I was the editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue. I had like a media pass that I made at home with like Mod Podge and a little blazer, and went to undergrad for magazine journalism. I have a Bachelor of Arts, and quickly transitioned into teaching yoga, which my first ever yoga class was a 3-hour vinyasa practice, which is bonkers today as a yoga teacher. So I don't know how that ended up happening.
Yeah,
But I loved it, and I was just really enjoying my personal practice, and was like, I want to expand my personal practice. Let's do a teacher training. I don't think a lot of people realize you can do that. Even if you don't want to be a teacher, you can just completely change your own personal practice by doing a YTT. And ended up being like, you know what, I actually could teach this. And the more that I taught it, I was also struggling to find jobs as a writer, just,
sure.
who's not struggling to find a job directly out of undergrad. So I was
Yeah.
working in the outdoor industry as a outfitter and a guide on the Chicago River, of all places, kayaking and doing outdoor ed. And I
Yeah.
kind of realized that the outdoor industry has absolutely no mental health support whatsoever. So, like, we're expected as guides to take strangers out into the wilderness and have potentially very serious situations happen with absolutely no mental health training, whether that's like a camp counselor who's 18 years old and leading a group of 12-year-olds in the Boundary Waters, and there's like a panic attack, or there's
Right.
bullying and there's anxiety, or seemingly more serious, like life-threatening, risky stuff of first responder who's like a wilderness first aid person who does a body recovery and then has serious trauma and effects from that afterward.
Yeah.
So all of my yoga and my outdoor industry stuff and my interest in mental health kind of combined into me realizing that I wanted to become a therapist, use the skills and information that I have from the outdoor industry, from yoga, from meditation, and provide psychoeducation for the outdoor industry. So I recently taught a huge group of camp counselors a bunch of mental health and nervous system stuff before they went out with teens last summer to group therapy and one-on-one stuff, which I should preface this. I am not yet a therapist. I am in graduate school. I'm almost done with my second year, and I am thrilled, tickled to be considered a mental health professional at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a journey, but I'm super stoked to be here.
Yeah. That's awesome. I was chuckling in your story because I didn't have that background. I knew you had your started in magazine journalism. I didn't know it was because of a love of Teen Vogue, and knowing
Isn't
where
that
you
funny?
ended up, that does make me chuckle.
The listeners can't see, but I live in a yurt and I live in the middle of the woods. So when I tell people that I wanted to be the editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue, it's like, wait, you really? Yeah.
So you get magazine subscriptions to the yurt in the woods? Do you still?
I sure do. And the yurt is so unique that even when people get our address wrong, like we got a letter a couple years ago that the house number, the fire number was wrong, the road was wrong, but the person who wrote it to us said the yurt people. And so our postal service was just like, oh, we know who that is. We'll get that to them anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome. Shout out to postal workers. They are unsung heroes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're in grad school. I would consider you a mental health professional. I sort of, as a therapist who's been doing this for a long time, like I start my math on how long I've been doing this is when I started seeing clients.
Yeah.
Because whether you're fully trained or fully licensed, like that is doing the work.
Totally. Yeah, that's a good point.
So, and most of us were woefully uninformed and not prepared, and we did it anyways. I love this idea of working with guides and some of this outdoor stuff. I think there's this perspective that being in nature is healing for mental health, and so like that's enough. Is that sort of
Totally
the vibe you pick up as well?
Like when I was actively guiding on the Chicago River, it would be, I remember one season we had, I think it was like 12 days in a row over 100 degrees, which in Chicago is absolutely unheard of. You want to talk about climate change? There you go. And we'd have tourists who are coming to see the river, and or even locals who'd never seen the river in this way, and you're getting them in their boat and getting them situated, and they look at you and they're like, God, you just have the dream job. You must be just living the dream out here. And it was like, you mean with my lack of health insurance, getting paid $12 an hour in this 102-degree heat for 10 days in a row? Loving it. Absolutely. Like there is that assumption of like, but you're living the dream and you're so passionate, and that, translates to a lot of different places and a lot of kind of industries and what have you. But the lack of, you can't, like, as guides, we don't have the information to take care of ourselves, nonetheless, to serve our clients. And a lot of people also seek nature when they're looking for healing. So there are a lot of people who will do like a big hiking trip or hire a guide to do like a big hunting trip or a rafting thing, and they're grieving, or they're going through a huge life transition. They just lost their job, they're whatever it is, and you have to be able to support them in that way. And there's a really incredible program out of Canada that's called Wilderness First Aid. And it's kind of like what the Red Cross would teach for a physical first aid. It's very high level, like nothing terribly serious, but super helpful, but it's for mental health. And the kind of motto of this organization and this training is connection is the correction. And that is something that, especially when I'm working with these guides, I can only give you a certain amount of information and a certain amount of understanding and tools, but you are a human being. And if you can connect with someone, no matter what it is that they're going through or they're dealing with in that moment, that's going to make a difference. I think that's so important for all of us to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's I think mental health first aid is not wilderness based, but like that's the thing that just everyday Joes, any random person can sign up for and take. And when I worked in athletics, I was the director of student athlete mental wellness, but it was a thing I was sort of surprised by how few of the athletic trainers, who again have like not medical degrees, but like they know a lot of how the body works, and they had next to
Yeah.
no mental health training. And so again, you have an athlete who's having a panic attack, and like a coach who has no mental health training. You have you know, like you have all these people who don't necessarily know even what that looks like.
Yeah.
And that's in a generally more like the worst. I would get calls from coaches on the bus right before or after
Mm.
a game, and somebody's having a mental health crisis, and it is scary, and it can be really debilitating. And so that's in surrounded by a team, but like, yeah, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, if you're out in the wilderness, I think that can be really dangerous. And also for the guides too, like what a traumatic experience that can be to have your work, this thing that you like, you enjoy, and then an experience like that you're not well suited to deal with.
And it can definitely, I mean, it's a career ender. And that, like, if you're out there and you have a situation and you're out of service, you're not able to contact someone. You can't call, your, like, the camp that I have worked with and that I actually grew up going to. They have someone you can call. There are mental health people on call during the season so that you can call someone if you have service, if you're able to. And that's
Right.
awesome. That's definitely a resource that is not available for a lot of places. But there is always, like, the kind of stigma behind, like, oh, you can handle it yourself, don't call camp. You can, but, like, don't do it. That's I think a pretty common experience a lot of times too, athletes too, of like, you don't want to come off as weak or,
Yeah.
vulnerable in any way. And yeah, I think we're definitely getting to a better place, like, to some degree. People are a little bit
Yeah.
more willing to, like, reach out and admit that they need support. And yeah, it feels like from a mutual aid kind of perspective, there's definitely a little
Mhm.
bit more. I spent 12 years in Chicago. That's how I met our dear friend Kelsey. And
Yeah.
that from a mutual aid standpoint, I think people are learning more about mental health from a crisis kind of standpoint, like psych first aid in the field, whatever that looks like. You're at a protest and something happens or something like that. But it
Yeah.
would be nice if the regular population had the opportunity to learn more.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not surprised we're going here already, but like, yeah, a lot of this stuff is systemic, right? That
Yeah.
you brought up not having health insurance, not having a livable wage that you're doing some of this work in, and then right, like it would be great if everybody was trained in this way, but we really would also be great if we could get some of those basics figured out
Yes. That would
first.
limit the need for some of the mental health support to some degree.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and then people who want further training or want some of this stuff have the time, have the energy, have the space to pursue that instead of feeling like we're just scraping by all the time.
Yes. What do you do for self-care? Like real self-care?
Yeah. Are you asking me specifically or
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I do a lot actually, and I always have without knowing that's what I was doing. I think early in my
Mm,
career I didn't have the language for it. Um, and I'm late diagnosed ADHD and autism. So a lot of my like self-care is physical movement based because I grew up playing sports, and sports is what I think kept my ADHD masked for so long is I was so busy playing high level sports all the time that like it's always something new. There's a new game, there's a new practice plan, there's something else coming up. And then like I think physically I was tired from
yeah.
from being on the go all the time. And so in my adult life, when I started doing therapy, I was across the street from a YMCA, and I 3 times a week I'd go play volleyball for 3 hours. Like that's an insane amount of
Oh,
volleyball. And it wasn't good. It was me and a bunch of like 50-year-old men who had the time to play volleyball for 3 hours at the YMCA. But like, I reflect on like how was I seeing 26 clients a week? What was I doing where like that was how did I do that for 7 years or however long I did that? It's like, oh, because I had 9 hours of self-care built into my every single week. And then,
wow.
in addition to other stuff, in addition to friends and family and other hobbies and recreation, like, but for me, I think the building block has always been athletics. And it's mellowed. I'm 37 and, I'm not playing that much volleyball anymore, but it's time in the woods. It's walking my dogs. I have a lot of like alone time as an introvert that I can fill with what feels necessary or what feels helpful in the moment. And it's so weird because doing what we do, I talk about self-care all the time with my clients, and I get the look that like I'm this alien who's like, what do you mean? Like self-care every day? What does that look like? How do you, and I did it for so long without realizing that's what I was doing, that like it really did sort of reshape my life around it, because I think I would
Wow.
have lost my own mind or gone, off the deep end on a client, or probably more likely like a loved one, because that's
Yeah.
what. So I think I was just always aware of like, in order to be a healthy, chill sort of person to be around, I needed to do a lot pretty proactively. And that's lucky that I stumbled sort of ass backwards into doing a lot of that. But at this point, it's a lot of nature. I have 2 kids. I like being out in nature with the boys. I like taking the dogs out. And still sport, it's still sports then. It's still biking, and winter's harder. Winter, even though I've been in Wisconsin my whole professional career and I prep people on winter is harder for your mental health. I find now that I play less competitive sports, like that really was a pretty strong thing I leaned on for most of my self-care. And sports are a socially acceptable way to hit something hard, is how I
Yeah.
often describe them. And so it's trying to find other stuff. Like I talk about chopping wood, probably an unreasonable amount for
Mm.
being in a city and in an urban setting. All my clients again sort of give me that look like, what sort of hippie stuff are you? Like, where are you getting all this wood? Oh, I still,
I actually
yeah.
heat with a wood stove.
Yeah.
So we are constantly like self-care. I love that idea of capturing the self-care that you're already doing. Because maybe you don't have to make up a bunch of fancy shit to add to your day. Maybe you are doing some of this and you just aren't recognizing it in quite those terms. That's great.
Yeah. And I think I do try and like bring that up for clients. Like listening to music is self-care. Right. And
Yeah.
so if we set some intention around it, then we can get a lot more benefit from it. Watching TV is self-care. If you're doing it sort of mindlessly with The Office on in the background for the 900th time, or if you're like, hey, Tuesday nights, my partner and I are going to sit down and watch this show together, and it becomes a special thing that we look forward to, like that impact for your mental health is a lot different. If you're going to have to take your dogs for a walk every day anyways, finding a different route, trying different things, going to your local park, like, again, you're doing it already anyway. How do we get some benefit from it? How do we, I think, plan for it?
Yeah.
And so it's sneaky. I think in capitalism, I approach it as like, let's find the sneaky times to do self-care. And that's not really maybe ethically aligned for me. I don't think we need to like work to earn our rest.
Yeah.
And I think that's what seems most approachable to people, is that like sort of the life hack approach, which like, again, I don't like, but yeah, a lot of times people will be like, oh, I do one thing a week for self-care and that's it. And then I'm coming in like, well, that's not enough. Let's do more. So
People have like expectations of me as a yoga and meditation teacher. They think that I have no anxiety at all, which like newsflash, wow, are you wrong? I feel like most of the yoga teachers I know really need yoga, and that's why we teach.
yeah,
There's also the expectation of like I'm super chill all the time, and I'm like all about self-care. And I think there's also the thought of like people assume that teachers of really anything get the same benefits of what they're teaching as their students do. And
right.
maybe some people do, but I'm going to bet it's not a very high percentage, because the experience of leading others through something, I mean, your comfort level with what you're teaching is a huge part of it. Some days when I'm teaching I definitely get more personally out of it, and other days it's
Yeah,
my job. I'm showing up
right,
for an hour and I'm teaching a class, and that's fine. Like, we can't all be 1000% in our job all the time, but it does
right.
crack me up. Like, as a person in the wellness industry, even outside of being a clinician, that the expectations are like wildly inappropriate in some ways.
Well, and yeah, and most of the therapists I know are neurotic in some or multiple ways.
Yep.
Um, you talk about yoga therapy, like anecdotally, I will not make this generalization, but anecdotally, the yoga instructors I know personally are all wound pretty tight. And like, yeah,
Yeah.
yoga is a foundational sort of base for their wellness and their own self-care, but like, yeah, because they need it.
Yes. I
They're not
love when I
Zen
walk into
masters.
Totally. Whenever, as a student, before I ever did a yoga teacher training, I was always like enchanted when the teacher would first, get people's attention and would immediately ask, "Is there anything that you guys would like to do today? Is there a body part that needs attention or a pose that you'd like to do? I will work that into today." Because I always thought, like, oh my God, that is a flexible, adaptable person. Like, that's incredible. And now that I've been teaching for long enough to feel confident that I can also offer that at the beginning of class, um, it's not uncommon for there to be crickets, because people are like, we're here because we want to do what you want to do. And so once I
Yeah.
ask, like, hey, is there anything you'd like to do today? When nobody says anything, I go, great, we're going to do what I want to do. And then I just do whatever. And I kind of feel like I'm like the Jim Carrey Grinch when I do that. It sort of makes me laugh, but it
Yeah.
really is. I'm like, oh, I have a headache today. Let's do a headache practice. Or my low back could use some attention. Let's do this. Like, it definitely, I'm doing what I need, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like as an athletics coach, player choice practices were always, oh, we didn't really make a practice plan, so we're just gonna ad lib.
Yeah, totally.
But it's interesting. I think even thinking of like outdoor guides and some of those positions, like it's that expert role that I think people cast these professionals into and assume like they have all their shit together. You brought up like the 18-year-old guiding 12-year-olds in the boundary waters. Like, that's an insane thing as a society that we're just like, that seems fine.
Like, I think back to being a 12-year-old and babysitting like 4 children who are under age 5 and getting paid for that. And that's in the front country. But like
Yeah.
an 18-year-old with a bunch of 12-year-olds out in the woods by themselves, like, what?
Yeah.
That is a
Yeah.
formative part of my like being a human being and how I look at the world and the way that I respect myself, respect my gear, respect the woods. Like, it's totally a crucial part of my well-being, and it's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. Just skating by 18-year-olds, vast overconfidence in their own capabilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is one of those things where it's like, right, I as the therapist of a long time feel pretty confident doing a lot of stuff in a crisis situation because one, I'm practiced at it, but like two, part of the reason like I was drawn to the work that I do is because like my brain does some version of it well. And I think,
Yeah.
experts and professionals have a scope of practice that they're probably quite exceptional at. And like throw in like a variable like nature, throw in a variable like a wild animal or whatever
A
it
weather
is,
thing.
a
Yeah,
weather thing. Yeah. Um, and it's like a totally different environment, even if it's something that you're really qualified to do.
absolutely. I recently started volunteering for the Red Cross. There was a local television station that did a call for volunteers as we move into winter season, because that's when there are a significant increase in house fires.
Mhm.
And the Red Cross has a million different ways to volunteer, but the one that I signed up for is called the Disaster Action Team. And it is when there is a house fire within a certain radius of where you live, you are a first responder and you show up on the site once the fire risk is over, and you provide crisis care for the humans and the pets who are affected by the particular
Yeah.
incident. And that idea of like, I have not been a mental health practitioner for very long, and I am a human being. I very much rely on the connection as the correction model, if you will.
Mhm.
But it's the kind of the case of you have these skills and you have this knowledge and this training, and then you put yourself in a completely different situation and see, how does this work? What can you offer in these situations? I went out on my first call out like a couple of weeks ago, 2, 3 weeks ago, and it was, I mean, what to say? It was crazy. It was, no one
Yeah.
died. I'm incredibly grateful that my first call out was not something with a fatality or with serious injuries, because that's a whole nother ballgame. But it
Mhm.
definitely felt like, especially in a time where it feels like all of the systems around us are falling apart slash completely broken and not actually supporting us, finding ways to bring meaning into my personal life and to potentially use professional skills in that way was very rewarding for me, to feel
Yeah.
like I made a difference in this person's life when they were in a serious moment of need. I definitely, like, with all of the friends and all the loved ones, as we talk about the world and the state of things and all of this, it's like, find a little moment of meaning. It does not mean that you have to get called out to a house fire. That's a
Right.
very extreme example, I will note. But like, finding ways to provide a little bit of meaning in your daily life, that especially in a local, like, community impact way, has been super, super helpful for me personally.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for young professionals who are listening, or for like non-therapists who are listening, like, nobody knows what the fuck to say in that situation. I've been
Yes.
doing this for 16 years. It never comes across to my clients that I don't know what to say, because I end up saying something. But like,
Yeah.
if you asked me ahead of time what I was going to say, I probably couldn't tell you. Um, a lot of it is just showing up as a human. And I had, one of my dogs was Canine Good Citizen certified, so that level right under therapy dog. And like, going someplace where there's a community event, or taking them out for a mental health reason, like, right, like, people just, they just want to connect. They want to pet a dog. They want to talk to a human. They want to process out loud what they've
Yes.
experienced. It's not, they're not looking for answers. They're looking to be grounded in some way.
Just to be heard, absolutely. I should mention too, like, the disaster action thing that I just mentioned. You're not trained in mental health for that. I happen to be going into that career, but these are just random people who are like, I would like to help and I would like to show up to this. And I have yet to meet anyone in this part of the Red Cross that is mental health trained, but we're showing up and we're doing this anyway. So there's all
Yeah.
kinds of ways to show up and to support people. And as mental health providers, sometimes it is hard to shut that part off. It's just like,
Yeah.
I spent like 15 years in the marketing industry as a writer and editor, and I have friends who are writers who cannot read books for fun because they can't shut their brain off. They can't turn off that
Mhm.
part. So when you're working with humans, that's really hard to be like, okay, I'm not analyzing things, I'm not predicting things, I'm not like those thoughts, you got to shut it down. So sometimes your service part maybe needs to be very, very different. And maybe it's not even working with humans. Maybe there's not direct contact. Maybe there's some other way to be helpful in a way that will benefit you as well.
Yeah. And longtime listeners know I'm like team collapse. Like, societal collapse will improve most people's lives, so like, that's what we should be rooting for. Um, but the idea of mutual aid, the idea of like community care, like, this is stuff that has existed throughout all of humanity. It's never been something where like the government came in and did this. Would they fund it? Sure, they used to anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
But like, no, it was people showing up. It was volunteers through Red Cross. It was local community members. Like, we know research around natural disasters is like, community members show up for each other. People
Hmm.
get more altruistic. Capitalism is not our natural setting. Altruism is our natural setting. And so I do think, even expanding beyond some of this conversation of like, why going to a protest is important, why volunteering at a food bank or donating food or any of those things while we're like looking at SNAP benefits being cut, like, it
Yep.
it does ground our own experience to see other like-minded people doing this, and to be reminded, like, it's not all news headlines and doom and gloom. Like, they're just real people out there. And I think that matters.
Absolutely. I'm a hardcore crier. That's something that I'm like relearning about myself. And if there's any sort of like community connection going on, so like if I'm in a protest, I'm crying because everyone around me is connecting and they are like the community and the empowerment and the I'm not alone and we're not alone. Like I'm crying. If I'm watching my neighbor, he is the girls basketball coach at the high school. If I'm watching the basketball team, I might have sunglasses on because if everyone is cheering for someone, I'm probably crying. It is mortifying. My poor therapist is like, Hattie, it's just crying. It's not like, what is so upsetting about this to you? And I'm like, Marcus, I don't know. But when there is connection, I will be crying. It's interesting that it is so visible when I'm having a meaningful experience because I cannot hide it. And it is, I wonder what it's like to not be quite so visibly emotive when you are in a situation like that, because I'm over here just like, I'm sorry, I'm such a weirdo.
I'm reminded, I don't know, I don't know what brand of neurodivergent you are.
ADHD all day, baby.
Yeah. So some of my experience as a late diagnosed autistic person is I'm on the side of the spectrum, and it's not a linear. I'm on the sphere over here side of pretty low emotions. Like I'm a chill person, but my affect is somewhat naturally flat. Not that I don't feel feelings, but
Yeah.
I don't feel them very big, which is great for a therapist because I come across as very like chill, sort of collected person. And I've learned in my older age here, like, oh, it's just because I'm autistic, not because I'm a good therapist. But then there's this other piece that's been weird for me to learn about as I work with a lot of other late diagnosed folks, is like the highly sensitive folks is like this whole other world for me, because that's not ever been my experience. And so it is interesting. And as a not crier, I always think it's really lovely that people can be so emotive, because that doesn't feel particularly approachable for me.
Totally. Yeah. The like neurodivergence is so fascinating. Oh my gosh. I listened to, I think it was maybe your most recent or one of your recent episodes where a gal came on and talked about being diagnosed ADHD in like their 40s. And I was diagnosed like 2 years ago, and I so relate to like learning about how that it's not who you are, it's a part of you, and how that has affected your experience. And as going into being a therapist, ADHD is a superpower for me in a lot of ways. It's not the best, I won't say. I wish I would have known about it, a while ago, just so I could understand why I do some of the things I do. But one of the cool parts about it, I think, is it seems like in a crisis, most people who have ADHD are incredible, like stable, steady, chill, take care of things. That's supposedly why a lot of us are hardcore procrastinators, because we need the adrenaline of getting the task done. And if there isn't like a fast turnaround or whatever, that's like part of it. Procrastination is my biggest problem as a person with ADHD by far. It is disgusting how much I procrastinate.
Well, and I think for a lot of ADHDers, that crisis is a lot of dopamine. Like we're highly stimulated in that moment. And when our brain is well stimulated, our autopilot works pretty well, actually. Like we can do things. And this is not everybody's experience, but I will say for ADHDers who have fast processing speed, like being able to sift through problem solving is really it can go really quickly when we're well stimulated. And so those high intensity situations, those crisis situations can be really good. And yeah, like from my experience, even in grad school, I had a professor who was like, you should think about crisis counseling because you're just so calm. And again, it's like, why didn't you give me an autism assessment then? I didn't even have I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was 23 and figured out I was autistic in my mid 30s. So, it's a journey. It's a journey we're all on. But yeah, I do think, and shifting a little bit back to the climate, like it is something that a lot of our clients bring up, but I think also like deeply impacts us as therapists. Like here in Wisconsin, this summer wasn't as bad, but like the summer before, like the smoke from the Canadian wildfires was so bad that even though we weren't facing some sort of direct loss of our environment, we couldn't participate in our environment. I have a partner and a kid who have asthma, and like that high risk group could not go outdoors. And so I think there is some like existential dread, and also like even if you're not in like a flood zone crisis kind of situation, we are having to deal with these types of events more and more frequently.
It's interesting being in the Midwest when it comes to climate stuff, because I think there's a lot of assumptions that the Midwest doesn't really get touched by any of this because we don't have hurricanes, we don't have, tsunamis, there are definitely wildfires. There have been a handful of wildfires in every summer forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, the smoke and the direct impact ripples to us regardless. So yeah, I think of like the AI processing thing that's supposedly going to take from the Great Lakes that's being considered, and that it's very hard to take on all of these concerns at once. I think that's one of the things that clients are definitely talking about, of like, I don't even know where to focus my attention and energy because I don't have any to share. I can't. I have to survive. I have to get through my day, and I can't think about the climate right now. I can't try to find ways to reduce my impact because I just need to get through my day. There's so much guilt and shame around all of that. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. And that might not be, again, like active crisis, but like we're living through like a mass. Anyone who's paying attention, I don't want to be doom and gloom here. I'm going to be a little doom and gloom.
Yeah.
We're living through like a mass
crisis.
Yeah, we're living through a mass extinction at the level of the dinosaurs dying out. Like this is a thing that is not like, oh, we can still wait till whatever future year to hit our climate marks. Like this is happening now and has been happening for a while. But I do think it's that overwhelm. I think some of that's by design in capitalism, of like the overwhelm of people feeling like they need to solve a systemic issue individually, which we know is not possible. But that is where like having some, I think, values aligned, ethics aligned action. I'm reading, what book am I reading right now? It's not that radical. I'm drawing a blank on the author. I could barely remember the title, but it's sort of encouraging people to like pick a thing, whether it affects your local community or you're well informed in it, or you like the people who are already running activism on it. As a religious trauma therapist, I say this to especially white people who have left religion. Like other people are doing this work for a long time. You don't need to like create your own activism. Like just join someone who's already doing the work. And so, but yeah, it's usually not you need to recycle more. It's we need to stop the next drilling company from opening a new pipeline. Like that's the much wider issue. And I think when we can sort of focus on one thing instead of we need to solve all of them, and we need to be our best little green living tiny carbon footprint people, like that's minuscule. We need to stop the Shell company from opening more pipelines.
Absolutely. Because I live in a yurt, there are expectations with that from other people of like, oh my gosh, are you off the grid? I'm like, no, I am 100% on the grid. I am far too on the grid. I just happen to live in a yurt. I don't I don't even have like a composting toilet. You know what I mean? Like I think there's a very all or nothing attitude from a lot of people. And I have it myself sometimes where I'm like, oh my God, I used an aluminum can today. I am a terrible person. And it's like, homie, that's like nothing. Yes, it is helpful to reduce your personal waste and to take some of those steps, but that's a great like way to go about it, of kind of a single stream. This is a thing that I can try to do stuff about, even if it's just be more aware of things, learn about things. That's important too.
Well, and it's part of what like brought me to CPA was like, it's this thing I care about. It's this thing that I know other people know a lot more about than I do. and like whatever despair I'm feeling, if I connect with people who are doing the work, are more involved in it, like I will feel less overwhelmed by it. And like,
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's good for therapists. Like, have your consult group, have your professional, don't just have your professional, whatever licensure you are, and like your default one conference every other year. Like, I did that for a lot of my career. I'm speaking from experience. Like, that doesn't help. Having people who you actually vibe with and are ethically aligned with is what helps.
Absolutely.
But yeah, like it's systemic issues are going to take systemic change, and how to participate in systemic change is to join a healthy system.
Yeah. Or create one if you have to.
Yeah. Which I think, you know, again, I'm wary of that. Not that I'm opposed to the revolutionaries. I support you. And I'm wary of like newcomer to climate change needing to reinvent the wheel. Like, no. They're indigenous folks. There's people who have been in this activist space for a long, long time. If you're naturally gifted and love spreadsheets and want to organize something in a different way, awesome. Because
yeah,
a lot of my
somebody
experience,
has to.
yeah, a lot of my experience around activism is like, we like the big ideas and not the spreadsheets necessarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it is like that connection idea again. Like we need to connect, especially for like, yeah, the poly crisis that is climate change, late stage capitalism, a rise in fascism. You know, all the fun
All the
things.
things.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So we've learned you're not off the grid, and you also have anxiety in spite of being a yoga instructor. What do you do for self-care? How do you take care of yourself?
You know, I have a therapist. I see him regularly. I walk my dog all the time. I am incredibly lucky that I happen to land in a physical place where my neighbor, who lives half a mile diagonally from me, is wonderful and has become my best friend. So we walk our dogs together every day. And that is
Yeah.
like, it's my sort of offload time of it's the end of my work day. I work from home. I have for way longer the pandemic, and it is so helpful to have like a little transition time. If you don't have a commute, it can be very hard to get out of that mindset. So that's kind of my like
Sure.
little turn my brain off time. Of course, because I'm still in grad school, I don't actually get to turn my brain off after we do that walk at like 5
Yeah.
p.m. because I then have to come home and study. But
And you have ADHD, so your brain doesn't ever turn off.
Absolutely not. I have really enjoyed the yoga studio. One of them that I teach for asked me if I would like to lead 15-minute meditations every week. Like 6 or 8 months ago. And at first I was kind of like, wait, me for reals? Like, are you sure? Because of the ADHD and the anxiety, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And the more I've done it, the more comfortable I've gotten with kind of recognizing if there's a little poem that I hear that speaks to me and I want to share it. I am a human living in this time, and the things around me are affecting me, and they are also affecting my clients, my students. And so I've gained a lot of comfortability and confidence personally through leading meditations because I'm connecting and I'm facilitating connection through that. So that is a form of self-care for me, is like kind of, I would not say I plan the meditations. I like wake up 15 minutes before it starts and then something happens in my brain and I make it happen. But facilitating that has been a form of self-care, which is interesting. I love yoga nidra. Are you familiar with that? Yeah. So that yoga nidra is like a kind of hypnosis of sorts. It kind of talks to your bilateral systems and gets your brain and your nervous system into one place. And it works really well for me. When I was working like 80-hour weeks, I would do yoga nidra on my lunch break in my car. And that is how I got through. So I that's definitely I would say when I'm like really struggling, I will do a nidra practice, whether it's 20 minutes or whatever. And that is a life changer for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, tiny little aside here, but you talking about having that download time is important. Like I do think therapists who are work from home, I think anyone who's work from home, it's sort of like the doorway method. Like going through a doorway provides your brain with new stimulation, which may or may not be a good thing. But like, yeah, taking some of those intentional breaks, I do think are important. Letting your brain and your body experience a shift together instead of just doing it
Yep.
intellectually, I think is really great. Um, what sort of as a new professional in the fields and having this idea of how you want to work, but that not being one of the maybe like I'm gonna say more formalized versions of work. You're not planning to open your own practice in an office. What does it look like for you? What's sort of the vision for the future of like how you're gonna meet clients and how you want to serve the community that you want to work with?
Yeah, I definitely will have. I think I'm gonna have to do a private practice, but I'm hoping to. We have like a cute little historic downtown, and I'm hoping to be able to. There's a little group of friends that I have, many of whom are much more financially well off than I am, so they have resources where they can. We want to kind of create like a little office space that people can like have access to, like a co-working space to some degree, but with some private
Sure.
space. And I'll probably be working out of that, and it'll be a combination of serving my local community because we have a unbelievable lack of mental health services in my county. It's
Hmm.
abysmal. The biggest town in my county, I think, is like 4,000 people, and that's the
Yeah.
county seat. So we just don't have the resources. So I'll be doing that locally, hopefully like sliding scale, figuring out ways to provide for people who don't have access, as well as people who do have the funds to pay some of the, like, take on some of the load from others, if you will.
Yeah.
And then I love to do group for people who've experienced outdoor trauma.
Hmm.
So whether that's like I was camping with my dad and there was a bear attack and now I'm afraid to go back outside, or I did a body recovery as an avalanche professional and I just physically cannot get over that.
Yeah.
Um, Plus psychoeducation. So like the training I led for the camp, I would really love to do preseason trainings for outfitters and guides to be able to give those resources and those tools. It's a great combination of like, why are people reacting in this way? How does the nervous system work at a very high level?
Hmm.
Plus, here's how to help someone get grounded in a panic attack. Or what
Yeah.
can you say when someone admits on day 4 of a backcountry trip that their dad just killed himself? What do you say in that situation?
Hmm.
So that's the dream.
Yeah.
I see it coming true. I'm actually getting to the point where I'm like, no, this is actually, I'm gonna make this happen for reals. And that's
Yeah.
pretty exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big advocate for private practice. I think as a grad student myself years ago, I feel like it was something that was really discouraged. And since opening my own place, I've had no regret. And just if I had any regret, it would be that I didn't do it earlier in my career. Um, but it is one of those things too, where being on Team Collapse, like I offer some limited slots for walk and talk therapy, and I love that, and I think
Yes.
it's great. And it is harder to like formalize. It is harder to do something like a schedule and see my clients in office and go to a local park. Or I would love to do paddleboard therapy in the summer here, like,
Ugh, yes.
and I'm terrified of a client drowning. So, like
Yeah.
balancing those like legality and ethical concerns while trying to be like, hey, there are people who like this is what healing would look like for them, and having that as an option would be awesome.
Heck yeah.
So 5 years from now, we'll do another session and be like, hey, Lake Arbutus paddleboard group, we're doing it.
Ugh.
Um,
Oh my God, amazing.
but yeah, no, I love that. And I love some of the new young therapists. Part of what I like about networking and doing the podcast is like getting to talk to people who are like, hey, yeah, like I'm young to my career, but like this is the population I already know I want to work with, and this is how I'm going to serve them. And like, that's so cool. That's not how I came out of grad school at all. It's like, oh, I need to work for an agency or I'll be poor forever. And then I worked for an agency and was
Yeah.
still poor. And what a shock that
Hmm.
was. Um,
Hmm.
And then you burn out.
I'm
And then,
very old as a grad student in this field. I am like 10 plus years older than most of my fellow students. Some of them
yeah.
will answer assignment questions with one word. I kid you not. One of my fellow students replied to a discussion question in a professional context with the word nah. And I sat there and was like, what is happening? I'm
Yeah.
definitely like, I've lived a whole life to get here. And so it makes sense that I'm a much more situated and knowing what I want. And I have the business experience too. So a lot of people
Yeah.
are afraid of that part of private practice of like taxes and administrative stuff. And I have no issue with that. I've already done that
Yeah.
for, 12 years. So I'm
Yeah.
ready.
And that as you're ADHD, I'm ADHD, as two ADHDers here too. Like there's lots of tools and ways that have simplified
Yes.
that maybe when I came out of grad school, maybe weren't as good as they are now. But like, yeah, that was something that held me up a lot, and it really doesn't matter. I mean, everything's automated on my end is how I choose to, not
Yeah.
that everyone needs to do it that way, but it's not hard.
Yeah.
And like that
Absolutely.
isn't a reason to not do it. But yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. That's sad about grad school. And also, man, some of the dumbest people I've ever met in my life, I met in graduate school, and they went on to get their PhDs. So,
Boy.
where it's a weird nuanced space to be like, I'm wary of experts, and also like, expertise matters so that we're not just living off of what Facebook or AI tells us to do. And
Yeah.
there's some not clever people who have lots of degrees.
Yeah. Those letters after your name may or may not mean anything at all.
Humanity, it's being somebody who's worked with mental health for a long time. Humanity continues to be full of surprises. So
Yeah.
it's fun, at least. Doesn't get
It's
boring.
part of why I want to be here. Yeah, the novelty I think is a huge part of every single day is different, and that's so important to me.
Yeah, for sure. Hatie, I know you're not fully licensed yet, so maybe can't plug your own pluggables yet. Although once that happens, we'll swing back around and make sure to make people aware of that. But if people want to learn more about what you're doing, if people want to learn more about CPA, where do they go? How do they connect with some of that stuff?
Yeah. So CPA, Climate Psychology Alliance of North America, Climate Psychology Alliance.us, I think is the website. We're actively redoing it. So ignore that for a month and then come back and it'll be really pretty.
Yeah. I mean,
There's a
new
lot of
logo.
committees.
There's a great new logo.
Yes, thank you. There's a ton of committees that you can get involved in there, so that's awesome. If you're interested in volunteering, the Red Cross is a great place to start. There's a lot of other places to see what's in your community. Personally, I teach yoga online as well as in person. So if you go to Room to Breathe, that is the yoga studio that I teach out of there in Chicago. And I'm teaching a yoga and journaling class on November 16th, which is super fun. We're very seasonal with our yoga and journaling. So this will be about growing and grounding before we head into the holiday season and the dark months and all of that. So as a writer, I really enjoy the yoga and journaling classes because I get to kind of bring that into my somatic space and I really love it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and someone who's new to CPA, but like workshops, climate cafes, trainings for therapists, trainings for non-therapists. Like, again, yes, you can volunteer, and yes, if you just want to show up as a learner, there's lots of opportunity for that too.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple of classes left throughout the year. We're hoping to have one on November 6th. That's breath, body, mind. It's kind of a somatic approach to some therapy, some kind of trauma informed somatic stuff. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah, very cool. That's probably when this episode will go up. So quick turnaround on that if you're interested. But yeah, it's good. And again, I think finding that community is really helpful. So big shout out to people who are already doing the work and to other professionals who are listening. Like finding those communities that are aligned really makes a world of difference compared to your every other year conference. Again, I think that's what too many of us as therapists do. It's not a good return on investment.
Yeah. And if going to one a year is all you have the energy and finances for, that is totally okay. But if you have,
Yep.
the bandwidth to do it a little differently, there are other benefits to glean that way.
Yeah. So part of the podcast, networking. We're doing it like real professionals. Hattie, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you. I enjoy listening.
And to all our wonderful listeners, thanks for tuning in again. We'll be back next week with another new episode. Take care, everyone.